What's poppin', people? It's Dante, getting my morning started here along the Schuylkill River Trail, trying a new angle here, photographing through these bridges. Yeah, just getting the morning started, catching the sunrise. You know, there's something about the sunrise that never ceases to put a smile on my face. Man, do I love the light. Fiat lux, let there be light. I remember reading this upon the wall of the Masonic Temple here in Philadelphia. And I'm reminded of creation, of Genesis. You know, one of the first things that God creates is light itself. Wow, look at the light reflecting off of this beacon of truth. That's what I like to call the Pico building here, when it reflects with its light. And yeah, I don't know, there's something about light itself. You know, as photographers, we paint with light. You know, where when God created light, he put order to the chaos, to the darkness. And so when I wake up in the morning and I'm watching as the sun peers above the horizon, and I see the surfaces being etched and formed, giving life to the canvas, I'm just eager and ready to go out there and to explore. In Genesis, in the garden, you know, they are tempted, Eve is tempted to eat the fruit, the knowledge of good and evil. From there, our innocence is removed, shame is introduced, and we are forced outside to toil. And when I consider this biblical story of Genesis, the garden, you know, the flaming swords guarding the entrance, we are banished from this paradise. However, there's part of me that wants to grab the swords and burn the garden down and rebuild again. You know, where for me, destruction becomes creation, embracing the Dionysus, embracing the chaos openly. And as I look at this rather bleak and boring apartment structure, this big glass thing, and look out towards this bridge and its grandeur and the architecture here with the detail of the trim and the different intricacies, you know, where the stones are laid out almost perfectly, but there's this organic nature to it. There's this imperfection in the perfection. You know, where the things that we create these days are just a little bit too pristine or something. And, you know, simple things like bridges, and this bridge that connects across the river, and the way that it's built, you know, thinking of gravity, thinking of the physical, you know, nature of life, and the labor and the artistry required to build these things. Well, I think that it is the apex of beauty and art. I believe architecture inspires greatness, and it elevates the human experience, the human spirit, to a new height, as you quite literally have to look up and gaze at this thing, right? The architecture of our times maybe is strange. Looking at this Pico building, you know, Pico, what is Pico? What does Pico stand for? P-E-C-O, Pennsylvania Electric Company, I don't know, something like this. I'm reminded of Benjamin Franklin, one of America's greatest founding fathers here from Philadelphia. And Benjamin Franklin and his experiment with the key and the kite, recognizing how lightning conducts electricity, capturing the source in a jar, I believe. I think he used like a silk cloth and just like a rudimentary kite that he constructed. And through these experiments, it led to his invention of the lightning rod. And this lightning rod, I believe, is still used to this day to protect buildings from electric strikes, from lightning charging that current into the ground, so it keeps the building and the people within safe and sound. You know, walking barefoot, you know, it's rather precarious. You know, when you walk on these pebbles and these sticks and things, you can feel all of the sensations, and maybe it's dangerous. I've been thinking of freedom. Outside of the Masonic Temple here in Philadelphia, where you have Benjamin Franklin and George Washington handshaking. I need to get a headshot. You have Benjamin Franklin and George Washington handshaking. You know, there's lots of sculptures that are depicted, or just, yeah, a lot of sculptures depicting revolutionary heroes, historic figures here along the streets of Philadelphia. Haha, headshot, baby. And so George Washington, being a revolutionary, fighting for freedom, I'm reminded of this notion of freedom and what that means to me. And so when I see George Washington on his horseback in these sculptures along the parkway, perhaps his dangerousness, his intrepidness, his courageousness is a symbol of freedom. And so perhaps to be free is to be dangerous. To be free is to be courageous. And perhaps that is the American spirit of freedom. And the sculptures, right? Like the sculpture depicted of air over there, of the man in that beautiful pose and posture. You know, a sculpture, like architecture, is the apex of beauty. I find that sculpture and architecture are two of the most incredible forms of art, as they are bigger than man. Where you look up at a sculpture, you look up at its grandeur, its height, its posture, its beauty. You know, you look up at these figures like George Washington or Benjamin Franklin, or that sculpture of air, or in Florence, the sculptures of Hercules and the sculptures of Achilles and ancient Greek mythology. You look at these things and it inspires you to strive for a new height. And to me, maybe this is the ultimate goal of art itself, is to elevate the human spirit to that height that hasn't been reached before. And thinking of Franklin and his experiment, you know, and the invention of the lightning rod. When I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Zambia, Africa, I remember this thunderstorm. Oh man, was this a crazy day. I was at the fish pond and this storm started to brew, and I was trudging through the darkness. It was in the middle of the night with just a simple flashlight on my forehead, looking into the swamp for direction to run out of there and go home. Just lightning, thunder, just a torrential downpour where frankly the next day a lot of houses actually were destroyed, a lot of houses were toppled over, a lot of people had to rebuild and start anew again after this insane storm. There's the sunrise. And so in my village we had solar, we had electricity, and the electricity, while it does turn off at night, a lot of the plugs I left on or plugged in during this storm. And when I returned home in the middle of the night, I was walking barefoot. Finished washing as I was discussing, and with my bucket and the pup doing a bucket bath very quickly so I could wash myself and go into bed. However, after washing myself and walking barefoot in my little mud hut, lightning struck and shocked the shit out of my feet. And so I felt this lightning strike travel through my foot, up my leg, like into my belly. And it was so alarming and startling that the next morning people were shocked. Like, this one lady was like sitting outside like she didn't want to work that day because she was in pain and suffering from the shock from lightning. And it just makes me think maybe yeah, we got to get some lightning rods. I should have had a lightning rod with me or something. Because that was really painful. But yeah, I think yeah, being barefoot can be dangerous. Oh man, the shadow casted through there is pretty nice. Yeah, being barefoot can be dangerous. However, I'm also reminded of, oh wow, this is cool. Look at this selfie. Now this is a cool, maybe try to get my feet. Oh, there you go. Kind of overexposed, but it's kind of cool. And then I can try to get the guy. I'm getting distracted here. Yeah, photography is everything. I gotta focus on the photography. Painting with light, baby. You know, when children are born, they come out of the womb without shoes. You know, where babies walk around, you know, without shoes. You know, children typically play without shoes. Maybe we too are supposed to leave this world without shoes. Just a funny thought. Where perhaps in the garden there was innocence. That sort of childlike naivete, that spirit of play I try to evoke, and I like to evoke in my everyday life, as I believe this is where my curiosity shines. You know, where I remember being a child where I would play with sticks, sharpen spears, build forts and teepees, you know, build bridges with stones and cross the streams, and spend a lot of my days surrounded in nature, in the woods, in this open space, you know, in the unknown, where this is, I believe, where a photographer thrives, on the front lines of life, in the unknown, articulating it and putting order to it. And you know, crazy thought, right? Just walking by this bench. In memory of David S. Levon Jr., Joe, he loved to walk and ride this trail. You know, there's something about memory, photography. He loved to walk and ride this trail. I love that. You know, I too love to walk and ride this trail. Hey, look, there's a heart. You know, names like Ben Franklin, names like George Washington, names like Hercules or Achilles, or even Jesus. You know, these names live on. David's name lives on. You know, it's living on through the bench, through the memory. You know, how many people remember their great-grandfathers, their ancestors? Is curiosity a vice? Does legacy matter? Why? You know, I've even been thinking about why, not necessarily why photography. For photography and art, I know merely affirms life, but what is the goal? And I don't really think that there is one, and I think that's okay. You know, where I think these notions of projects, books, galleries, shows, you know, the external thing, even just the physical thing, or the digital photograph, the negative, striking the print. Honestly, it's just not of my concern at this moment. I just don't think about it. I just don't really care, right? I feel like, could you, like, another question is like, could you photograph, or would you photograph rather, if you couldn't see the result? You know, would you keep making photos? And the more I think about it, I think so. You know, I don't really need to see the photo. I'm not too concerned with the photo. You know, for me, the photo, it's merely a byproduct of your courage and your curiosity. You know, it's just a byproduct of you being there. And while it does create a memory, maybe I don't necessarily photograph to remember. Maybe I photograph so that I can simply just be here right now, be here under the light, be here on the trail, be here walking in nature, be here walking on the street, wherever I may be. You know, where we have a past, we have a future, but perhaps photography, it allows you to exist outside the passage of time, looking at the eye. You know, the eye, right? Photography being this visual game, right? Photography being this physical pleasure where you walk through the world, you recognize the patterns in nature and human behavior, whether studying the light, watching people. You know, I find that my idea of a composition is that it merely derives through your intuition. You know, composition isn't something that you sit there and be so deliberate and decisive about, but the spontaneous nature of life, it's out of our control in these environments. You know, practicing photography on the street, on repeat. You know, the more that you move your feet, the more that you will see. And so I'm always reminded of the physical nature of photography being supreme. You know, I really do believe in that. You can know all of the rules, all of the guidelines, all of the ways in which you can make the greatest art, but you got to move your physical body in order to start. You know, where the motivation's in your legs. You know, maybe ideas of motivation and inspiration too are like a vice. You know, thinking of freedom, looking on, now I can see Washington on his horse under this bridge, which is super cool, backlit silhouette. You know, we have the freedom to choose. Good morning. I love your color, pink. Thinking, yeah, like, okay, so we have the freedom to choose what we want to do, what we don't want to do. You know, is freedom simply just indulging in endless vices? Is freedom indulging in endless hedonistic pleasures, drinking endless beer, doing endless drugs, you know, just seeking these pleasurable things, where maybe pleasure and pain and this binary is kind of just basic at best. You know, even if I pursue pain in hopes for some sort of gain, an increase of strength, maybe that too is a basic thought. I mean, you know, pain and pleasure, it's funny. Maybe just seek to go beyond the binary, the black and white. Maybe that's how we oftentimes live our life. Good versus bad, light versus dark. You know, without the devil, there is no God. Maybe there's always going to be war and chaos, red versus blue, you know, political tension. I love wearing purple, all purple, baby. I am wearing the colors of the bishop of the Episcopalian Church or something, I think. Yeah, I think it's the color that we need more of in the world, right? Thinking of the political tension in the United States. You know, maybe we need to find a middle ground, right? I remember playing Halo 2, Halo 3. There was this series that I remember watching on Rooster Teeth or something on YouTube where it was red versus blue. You know, maybe we have to go beyond the binary, red versus blue, and just choose purple. You know, Halo being this incredible game. I remember Halo 3, this hyper competitive first-person shooter video game, sci-fi, in space, fighting. I think I was either in 8th or 9th grade, probably 9th grade in high school, and they had us read Ender's Game. And in Ender's Game, I believe the boys are stationed on a spaceship fighting simulated battles that turned out to be a real war, where they were in virtual reality, similar to a video game, I believe, and fighting a war in space, and they wound up winning the war unknowingly. And maybe with the advent of technology in the space of war, thinking of robots, AI, you know, maybe nowadays when a bomb is dropped on a city or a place, it could merely be from an 18-year-old kid with an Xbox controller just sitting there, you know, playing an Xbox game, dropping bombs, and that's not okay. You know, perhaps there was glory on the battlefield at a time where there was hand-to-hand combat. But nowadays, war just seems like slaughter. And yeah, I think the technology kind of gets out of hand. There's just a lack of the physical connection. Look at the beautiful day, beautiful view, beautiful place. To me, this is the most objective. This is the objectively most beautiful place in the city of Philadelphia, behind the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Beautiful pavilions, shrubs, plants, trees, that crisp, cold breeze. I can see the skyline of the city. It's just a nice place to come in the morning and look out and remind myself that this world is open and endless to explore. There's just so much to see and do in life. Looking at the ducks by the waterfall. Here comes the sun. It's up here above this wall. There it is. Haha. I came out at a good time this morning. Perfect time. I'm glad I get the sun today on this beautiful Saturday. Yeah, the sun never ceases to put a smile on my face. It's really surprised when you hit the sun, because it's just so chilly in the shade, but then you just feel your body warming up, heating up. It's almost like our bodies, our batteries, and the sun charges this thing. Birdie birdie tweet tweet. Maybe to be free is to be like the birds, striving to fly high into the sky and reach new heights. If life was a video game, I'd choose this to be my respawn point. I'd respawn here. This reminds me of Assassin's Creed, when you would find a space like this and there would be like a barrel of hay or something, and I forget the term that's used in the game, but you would do like a free dive, sort of falling from the sky on a feather bed. And yeah, this would be a nice respawn point. You know, you get the sun, you get a nice view. So yeah, maybe yeah, find your respawn point. This is my respawn point, baby. I respawn here every day.